Warhammer 40k Darktide just released its newest class, the Skitarii, but it's left us all wondering where in the world could Fat Shark even go from here. Today, I've brought on Joe Plays Games, good friend of the channel. Go over to her channel right now and subscribe to her because she definitely deserves it. Joe is a sleuth for Darktide and Warhammer 40k. She likes to get down and dirty with the lore and story, and she is the right person to discuss who or what is coming to Darktide next. But first, we need to review the classes that we've gotten so far. So Joe, can you kind of go through the history of the classes that have been added to Darktide?
Yeah. So basically we started out in summer of 2024, right? Or was it
Yes. Wait.
yeah. No, 2025.
25. Yeah, more
Oh my
recent.
god.
Mm-hmm.
What is time even? But anyways, we started out Warhammer Skulls last year, 2025, with the Adeptus Arbites. And that was a huge moment for Darktide. Fat Shark really nailed it with the teaser marketing on that, with what was it, like a 5-second clip of the dog running that just made
Yeah.
everybody lose their minds and be like, oh my god, what could this be? Like I had never seen so many people in the community talking about like what was going to be happening in the game and, you know, what they were excited for and stuff in a long time. And then in December of last year, so just 8 months ago, we got the Hive Scum for the anniversary update. And that was kind of a surprise. I don't think really anybody was expecting a second class. I know for sure, like, you and I weren't, until, you know, Fat Shark reached out and was like, hey, will you make content about this? And like, also, you know, you're gonna, and not like, and put it out there that there's a new class coming. And we were like, what? There's a
Yeah.
new class coming?
Yeah.
But yeah, that's where, oh, and then obviously this year, you know, just about a month ago now, or I guess more like a couple weeks ago, Skitarii came out. So we've had 3 classes in a full calendar year. I kind of wonder if they did 2 classes last year because they wanted to do a DLC class the first year and just were like so slammed and, you know, doing like unlocked and loaded, redoing the crafting and the weapon stuff from the ground up and everything, and they just like didn't have the time for it. So then they, you know, loaded it into the next year for that content cycle. But
yeah, it does seem like the
we'll see.
first at least 2 years of Darktide's development was basically the game playing catch up to where it
Yeah.
probably should have been on release. And then
Yeah.
once they released the unlocked and loaded update, then they were like, okay, now we can pursue everything else that we want to do. We can start making some new and fresh content. But there's a model for kind of predicting which classes are going to release in Darktide, and that model is the Wrath and Glory Darktide supplement. Basically, it allows us to look at the tier 2 characters, which are specified in the actual Darktide module for Wrath and Glory, and go through the list of tier 2 characters, or archetypes as they're called in Wrath and Glory, and kind of predict which characters are going to be coming to Darktide. If you're interested in this, you can actually export your character through, I believe it's Foundry Tabletop,
Mm-hmm.
in
Yeah,
order
it's
to
Foundry.
in order to basically play this yourself. But you have classes like the Veteran in there, the Ogren, you've got various Psychers. I believe the Preacher or the Zealot Preacher will like basically export to one of the various priests, one of the Ministorum priests. And then
Mm-hmm.
you've got the Hive Scum, who becomes, I believe, like a gang leader or a Hive Scum leader or ganger boss. And then now you have Skitarii, which is, of course, a Skitarii. This kind of brings us to the list of, like, what can potentially be added to Darktide. And the list is getting shorter and shorter and shorter as we get new releases. Joe, what do you think is going to be the next class to get added to the game?
So my money, there are 2 things, two classes that I think are the most likely, because they are in that tier 2 like lineup from Wrath and Glory. And then also the other thing that I think is a crucial element in class selection for Darktide, because we know that Games Workshop specifically likes to lean in this direction, is essentially translating video game stuff into model sales. So
Hmm.
I think that there are things that are going to have a model as well. So the two things in my mind that just immediately jump to mind are Sisters of Battle and Eldar.
Yeah, and we do know that Eldar are pretty dang big this year. They are going to be part of Total War Warhammer 40k. They just released the kill team of the Exodites riding dinosaurs. And so there's definitely a little bit of a push in that Eldar direction. And it would make for kind of an interesting progression of the story because we've already seen Eldar appear
Yes.
mentioned by a lot of the a lot of the characters. They always talk about them in Darktide. I believe they're pretty much the most talked about Xenos race aside from Gene Stealers at this point.
Yes. Yeah. So essentially, like in story terms, there's two like big elements kind of revolving around Eldar. So the setup to them kind of like showing up and buzzing around the Morning Star was actually a Vox intercept that Fat Shark never publicly released, like they never promoted it. But if you go to their YouTube channel, to the Fat Shark YouTube channel, and you go to the playlist of Voxes, there's actually like 4 Vox intercepts or something like that that are in the playlist, and you can access them that way, but they never got publicized. And in one of those, we find out that most likely Grendel has worked with the Eldar specifically in the past. And then after that setup and everything, in Ship Mistress Brahm's Mortis Trial Memories that came out along with the Adeptus Arbites update, we find out that there are essentially Eldar, and they are around the Morning Star. They weren't there originally. They've shown up since we've arrived to Atoma, and they're just kind of circling the Morning Star, and they'll kind of like come in and like just kind of sit there and take a look and then like fuck off and disappear again. And essentially it was like really freaking the crew out because they were like, they're gonna kill us. Like they're here to kill
Yeah,
us.
yeah.
And then they're like, but then after so much time passed, they're like, if they were gonna kill us, they would have done it by now. So like, what the hell do they want? um so yeah, there's a pretty good story, a very strong story set up for Eldar. And then Sisters of Battle is actually pretty decently set up about it's more set up than any of the other player classes have been to date, because Hestia Prine, she's a novitiate
Yep.
from it's like Crucius or something like
Crucis.
that.
Hmm.
Yeah. So essentially like there's at least a very solid like established character in there with Sisters of Battle. And you mentioned Gene Stealers as being like the only other Xenos race that's been mentioned as much, and like every now and then I have like the insane thought where I'm like, wouldn't it be a trip if they decided that they couldn't do like Gene Stealer enemies because it's too hard to get like the engine to like stably run two major factions that fight each other and us and everything like that? Wouldn't it be a trip if they made them player characters?
What if they already have? What if it's just Hive Scum? Like they've been G
Oh,
Stealers this entire time.
oh god, that'd be
Surprise.
so funny. But yeah, just like that. That's the other like that's my absolute like tinfoil hat like insane thought that I have every now and then, because like it does fit the bill as far as model saleability goes, because they're very much Gene Stealer cults and Gene Stealer armies on the tabletop. But that's the other thought that just like creeps in my head every now and then. It's like, what if they did player class Gene Stealers, like Gene Stealer cultists? That'd be crazy.
That'd be insane. I think that there is a I look at it from like a marketing perspective of like what class is going to sell Darktide. And it
Yeah.
was so obvious that the Skitarii was a major win for Fat
Oh,
Shark and for Darktide in general, because it was literally Darktide's most successful update ever. In
yeah.
all the years that Darktide has been out, this one Adeptus Mechanicus class sold more copies of Darktide then redoing the entire game's crafting system, redoing the game's end game system, adding 2 other classes to the game. Like, it functionally, I'm not going to say saved Darktide, because Darktide didn't really need saving, but dude,
Yeah.
like, after that Expeditions update, it definitely pulled Darktide out of the pit that it was in. And so it
It
seems like something like Sisters of Battle or adding an Eldar to the freaking game would be easy W's. Just Fat Shark farming, easy W's, and just selling copies of Darktide, because people would flock to this game like crazy, because there is no other game right now other than Bolt Gun 2 coming out pretty soon here, where you could play as a Sister of Battle in first person,
mhm.
and there is no other game where you could play as an Eldar in first person.
Yeah. No, yeah, I think that those are also big things to consider too, because like Fat Shark um seems to, enjoy taking the things that haven't been like quite as loved, which I mean, whenever you're talking about Warhammer 40K games, that is it leaves a lot on the table for like things that haven't been shown as much love
Sure, yeah.
in terms of video games, because really the only thing that get video games made for them are Space Marines for the most part,
Yep.
at least like, FPSs and everything. So yeah, I personally think that the only thing that could rival Skitarii in terms of hype, in terms of sales, in terms of people just losing their goddamn minds for it, is Sisters of Battle. I don't think that Eldar would have quite the same amount of pull. We'll see if that changes. Because like Dark Heresy has an Eldar companion in
Hmm.
it and stuff like that. So like maybe they'll get a little bit more popular and a little bit more like loved in terms of like people being like, oh, I liked this character in this other thing, so I'd really like to see some Eldar and stuff or something like that. But Sisters of Battle is just like the easiest win on the table that they could do if Games Workshop would sign off on it.
Well, it's so funny. I like to peruse different 40K communities online, and a lot of the memes revolve around obviously Space Marines, but secondary to that are Sisters of Battle, the Imperial Guard, and Adeptus Mechanicus. Usually it's Skitarii,
Hmm.
right? You got the femboy Skitarii fan club out there.
Oh
Shout
yeah.
out to you guys. But it just seems so obvious, like that would be the best choice, but there are a couple of other options in the tier 2 archetypes of Wrath and Glory. Like, for example, you've got things like Death Cult Assassin. They could add a number of different assassins to Darktide. The power scaling of the game is a little whack. The class would just need to be able to translate to Wrath and Glory in some way, shape, or form. And so with having like the Skitarii in the game, with having, which I believe it's a Skitarii Alpha Primus, kind of completely new to Darktide, or more them flushing out old lore, but something that's a bit higher in power scaling than like a Ranger Alpha or a Vanguard Alpha. It's kind of in between an Alpha and a Marshal, something with a bit
Yeah.
more consciousness, I guess you could say, because you're able to kind of like think for
Yeah.
yourself. And you've, of course, got the Psyker, which, who knows if our Psyker is a sanctioned Psyker? If it is, then it's very powerful. Our Ogryn is effectively a bonehead, which means that they are kind of smart for an Ogryn. They can
Yeah.
actually do more than just hit things with their guns. They can actually shoot those guns. So we have some pretty powerful characters in the game already. It would not be too crazy to add something like a Sister of Battle and Power Armor, an Eldar Ranger, or one of the various Imperial Assassins.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And especially with Skitarii at this point, just because like Skitarii in terms of even the most basic one, the role that they fill. Sorry, I still have a cough.
You're
Um,
good.
but like even the role that they fill within the armies of the Adeptus Mechanicus, the legions and everything. Your most basic Skitarii is worth in terms of capability and everything like that about as much or more than your standard like guardsman veteran,
Hmm.
which is a a really high like tier compliment essentially. Like they're crazy powerful. And so to get not just like we didn't get a basic Skitari, like we got Skitari Alpha Primus. I definitely think that that puts pretty much anything short of a Space Marine itself, which we already know that they're not going to do as player characters.
Right, right.
Um, but like I think that puts that pretty, Sister of Battle, Eldar, the power scale that we're seeing and the level of importance that we're seeing from the characters that have been added to Darktide definitely put those options very much on the table.
Wonderful. Well, I think that's a great place to conclude this conversation, Joe. I think we basically covered everything that could potentially be added outside of the silly options such as Orc Freebooter, Feelinid. Guys, it's never gonna happen. Cat girls are never gonna get added to Darktide. Just get that out of your brains or your fucking minds right now. But yeah, I think that's a great place to end it. Joe, do you have any final thoughts?
I'm gonna say right now, I'm putting my money on I'm gonna say Eldar. I wanna say Sisters of Battle, but I don't know if Games Workshop would sign off on that just because of like the place that they hold in like lore and everything. So I'm gonna say Eldar, but I'm really 50-50 between Eldar and Sisters of Battle.
Hey, I'm all in on Sisters just because I want it to happen. If it could happen for Rogue Trader, it could happen here. We can get them added in, boys. But,
That's very fair.
which, hey, there's an Eldar and Rogue Trader as well. So, two. There's
Just
a Dark Eldar and an Eldar.
Just keep in mind, there is no way in hell they're doing a Repentia skin for them if we
No.
get Sisters of Battle.
No,
It's
no,
not
no, no, no.
happening.
No, 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 no. Unless we ask for it. Guys, we need to ask for Sisters of Battle bikini Battle Sister skin added to the game tomorrow. Let's make it happen. But guys, thank you for joining us today. Please head over to Joe Plays His Games channel and make sure you subscribe. And Joe, of course, thank you as well. Everyone,
Hey, thank
the
you
Emperor
too.
protects. Bye.